Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV. Wow, it's December and we keep getting new great guests. And this one here today, I want to welcome for his first interview here on Drum Talk TV, and that's Nathan Sabanayagam. I got it right, correct?
Awesome.
See, I
Awesome.
wasn't
Thank
sure
you.
it was Nathan or Natan or, I wasn't really sure.
That's the tough part. Is always that little beginning.
Welcome. I'm so excited to have you on. We don't get a lot of reggae drummers for whatever reason. So when Mercedes reached out and I watched a couple of videos, like I can't wait to talk reggae drumming. So you're part of Naya Records. You're part of the Naya Rockers. You do a
Yeah.
ton of session work. You just mentioned something about coming back from Iceland with Mr. Edgar. We'll talk about that. But what I really want to talk about first is what is the deal with reggae drumming and reggae music? And really what I mean by that, Nathan, is there a way for you to articulate, oh, by the way, Nathan's in Medford, Connecticut, and I'm in Globe, Arizona.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Medford, Massachusetts, and I'm at the other end of the country in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix. Chime in, folks. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if you're into reggae. Who are some of your favorite reggae artists? There's a chance that Nathan's played with them. And let's talk reggae. Is there a way to articulate how to get the feel of reggae? I mean, other than the platitude that it's the only music you can clap on 1 and 3 and not get yelled at.
Wow. I guess that's the first time I heard that one. But yeah, I guess like anything, it's there's the essence of that makes it reggae, right? There's the notes. Right, and the notes
math.
are all the math. That's all in common with all genres, right? We can break it all down, and the different patterns,
Yeah.
so to speak. But the patterns alone won't get you there, right? So I think, and in reggae, as much as in jazz as well, right? Once you really get into like a touch and a feel thing, it becomes is more about that than the notes that you're playing, right? So I
Right.
think in reggae, if I was going to boil it down without getting technical, right, and saying, oh, well, if you count it like 1 and 2, no, it's more of, and it's a feeling, and you have to think about where it came from, and if you've been to an island, not necessarily Jamaica, but any kind of island, tropical place, that will start to give you some insight to reggae. I feel. And also just kind of understanding like under the pretense of how it was created and who created it, right? Where we're talking like the Rastafarians who were descendants of slaves, but kind of re-identifying themselves with Africa. This is a deeply spiritual music, right?
Yeah.
That when it first really came on the scene, and I think when it's played and played within that spirituality, there's this like conviction in it, right? Like in gospel music,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I was just thinking that
There's
gospel soul. Yeah.
it's very much like if you listen to like Jimmy Cliff's "Many Rivers to Cross," like that is a gospel that you could sing that could be in church, right?
Yeah.
Like any church in America, even, like gospel church, and it would fit. It wouldn't, because it is that, and there's that part of it. So yeah, reggae has this like this very deep, spiritual, tropical energy that when you boil it down, with the kind of rhythmic foundations that they've created, which for drumming we could say the one drop,
Yeah.
and we could all the different styles of the one drop within that.
It's so
And then,
different from any other music, really. Even though jazz came from mostly West African music, it's still so far away from what we get from the other music, like I said, from Africa that ended up being reggae. There's nothing just like that, you know?
Right. Because embodied inside of it has all of those elements, that of the culture,
Yeah.
right, of it, and down to the drums and the Nyabingi drums and the percussion that go along. I feel like reggae when it's played and there's the drums. That's the one. Drums and bass are the foundation, and then there's the skank. Then the guitar and keyboard player doing that. And then the organ player's shuffling, which he's really kind of playing with the hi-hat of the drummer.
Right.
Either along with it or accenting it or grooving with it, right? They're both kind of surfing on that. And together, and then you have the percussion player, playing the straight 16ths on the tambourine while the drummer is accenting a couple ones here and there and playing a broken pattern. And it's just like this beautiful like machine, living organism that's just floating through space, because everybody's in sync with each other,
Right.
and just and connect. Like everybody has to know their part. That's one big thing about reggae, where it's very part oriented, and which makes the drumming that way too. And people be like, oh, it's very monotonous or very that hypnotic,
Excuse me. Thank you.
Or repetitive in that way.
Yeah.
But there's a purpose behind that, because within that you create this atmosphere over time and that kind of feeling, as opposed to being like, hitting a fill
Excuse me.
every other bar, you know what I mean? Like
right.
it's not meant to be
less predictable.
Like that. Right.
Yeah, it's less predictable. That was really good, because I think that reggae music is probably one of the more difficult things to articulate. And I think with all music, especially if it comes from a place where where your roots are not familiar, it's just like to learn a culture, to understand a people. I think you need to dive into the food. You need to dive into the music, understand a bit about what is it about the architecture that makes that region differently. But then if we were to take any one of those, food or music, now to learn the food, you got to immerse yourself. The same thing with reggae, like even giving everything you said and someone saying, yep, okay, I got it. You got to listen to like 50 reggae albums and really play along with it to understand mechanically and physiologically, how does it feel to do that? Because it is way beyond the math. There's the math. Then there is, like you said, Nathan, the sounds of the instruments. Okay, I got the right splash cymbals. I got the right timbal. I got the right everything. But then there's the feel, and you really have to take a deep dive. You can't just fake it and listen to. And just like for me, one of the most difficult things to play on the drums is reggae music and Latin music. Latin music is just so challenging for me because I never learned it. I was never properly taught it. I never, like I said, immersed myself in it. Those two styles are equally as culturally relevant to where they came from. And if you don't take a deep dive, you're kind of mailing it in, I think, or doing some, and I don't mean this racially, but a whitewashed version of it. You know what I mean?
Right. Or maybe just down. Just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, oh, well, this is really what it is. Some people are like, oh yeah, reggae, you just play the beat backwards. And I get that. I hear that all the time, and I'm just like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? I'm just like, you play it upside down. Like, what does that mean too? Like, I was like, huh? But and there's all kinds of debates. Do you count it cut time, or do you count quarter notes, or I was like, drummers there are just feeling more than counting anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
As long as you can get that roll off and everybody comes in at the same time, do it whichever way it works.
Right.
You know what I mean? And people will know you for that style and that kind of thing. And I think it's challenging sometimes coming back here and working with such amazing musicians that are so kind of regimented that they're not willing to kind of be loose sometimes or take those risks, right? Or because it's like, oh, technically incorrect or whatever, and
the lab coats come in,
right, and as I've been a person probably that could be accused of that too at some points in my life. I feel like, yeah, this is not a time for that, or you know,
Right.
when you're really creating and really trying to express something, like throw all of that stuff out the window.
Yeah. Just play.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of just playing, I want to show some playing. I have a video of you doing a solo and then playing with the band after your solo. I'm going to play your solo and kind of skip through the video a little bit for everybody. Check this out, folks. This is beautiful. By the way, my wife, again, not to stereotype or anything, but my wife's family is from St. Kitts in that region.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So she's a hardcore old school jazz fan and reggae fan.
Okay.
She's got an amazing CD. It's not mine. She's got an amazing CD collection of all that music. So I've been turned on to some really great stuff. And we'll talk about reggae influences when we come back. But check this out, folks. Here's something new to try at home.
Nathan and drums away.
So cool. Did you see how that flowed, folks? We're going to pop ahead into a further part of the song. Check this out. So cool. You know, in reggae, like even the sad songs feel bouncy and happy, right?
Yeah.
There's something just so celebratory about the music.
That juxtaposition, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think too, like for being someone that has been to Jamaica, it is that, you know, within the struggle is the beauty, the flowers, the mango trees, you know what I mean? That you can't be ungrateful regardless of your situation, because like life is bountiful and you know, God is great, you know, and so, you know, but at the same time it's hard. So that's the music too. It's like, it's all like interwoven inside of it, the struggle, like I was saying, you know, so.
Absolutely.
It's cool. And that was obviously those clips with the great Clinton Farron. I mean, what a honor to be called to play drums for him.
Yeah, that's legendary.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We had Joshua VP chimed in. He's watching from Belgium. Super fan. Joshua, thanks so much for chiming in. He says his favorite reggae artist is Bob Marley. I've never heard of him. I'm sure he's pretty good. Yeah. And of course, Lawrence Hernandez, Bob's drummer, was just legendary. And then he mentions the Police in the 80s that brought music from Africa with reggae music and pop. The funny, interesting thing about that, Joshua.
It was Carlton Barrett was Bob Marley's drummer.
I've interviewed Carlton before, so maybe he's saying, separately, Lawrence. I thought maybe Lawrence was in there for a while, but yeah, Carlton we interviewed. Gosh, it's been 3 years already this January at the 2020 NAMM show. He came by the booth and...
Was that Carlton or Santa Davis? Because Carlton passed a long time.
What year did Carlton pass?
think in the 80s.
Oh
Something.
gosh, I'm drunk or something then.
No.
It was Mr. Davis then.
Yeah, Santa. It was
Yeah,
Santa because
yeah.
he's always that name. Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
Senior
And
moments,
Santa,
man. Just wait till you folks get there. It's great.
Right, and Santa did record a lot with Bob, and obviously Soul Syndicate and all the
Yeah.
other.
Oh, the Soul Syndicate was amazing. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
Stuart Copeland swears that he doesn't play reggae. There's little hints of this and that, but he says, I don't play reggae.
I guess, yeah, he kind of has his own hybrid of it.
You hear influence there, but
it's in there definally.
Yeah.
But he's also like a punk rock jazz drummer.
Exactly.
So that can be misinterpreted maybe at times as that or interpreted as that. You know what I mean? But I think for him, maybe when he says that is that his intention is not to try to do that or sound like that.
I believe that's the case. Yeah. He doesn't want to take credit for something that he doesn't claim to be an expert at. And I think that's very humble,
Yeah. Although, which is crazy because, I'm extremely influenced by Stuart Copeland and his drumming. And my wife and I had a Police cover band that
really?
For a while. Yeah. She was like playing left-hand bass and singing and playing keys, and I was playing drums, and
Awesome.
we were just going for all the like driven to tears and like all the Regatta de Blanc and
that's great.
Theo Moore, like I'm a huge
like how is Walking on the Moon not influenced by reggae, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's playing a one drum for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So on the topic of Bob Marley, would reggae have made it to the height that it has in North America and Western Europe had it not been for a Bob Marley? Or the Bob Marley, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some truth to that. It had to be someone. They tried, I think, before Bob was Jimmy Cliff.
Yeah,
it really made a good effort. I think they even say that in 1973, the year I was born. Reggae made its international debut with The Harder They Come, and that was it became international, so to speak, and then within it it kind of kept spreading. So but then Jimmy, I think, wasn't really interested in the limelight, and he eventually turned Muslim, I think, like halfway through what he was doing, so no longer became the candidate to be in the international star that Bob Marley, now Chris Blackwell had his eyes on somebody else and was like, okay, I'm gonna, Bob Marley's gonna be the next guy.
And I think he really personified, the whole movement and everything culturally and musically, besides the fact that he just had such great material and he was so prolific. He just wrote so much.
I think there was, people like that are supposed to be like magnetic, so to speak, right? Like they just attract. That's all they do.
Exactly.
Everyone is drawn to them like they're a beacon of light. And I believe, he was probably one of them. I got to spend a lot of time working in Jamaica with Earl Chinna-Smith, who was recorded a lot with Bob, and he would say that Bob was one of the greatest leaders, and that he had, as Chinna, a man that played with everybody in every band, he made note of that, and that his leadership, and just kind of, and that speaks volume to say that you're not only a entertainer and a singer, right, of this music, but he's leading the movement.
Right. Exactly. And his offspring have done pretty well carrying the torch in their own right, which is cool. So where did you start as a musician? Why the drums? Who were some of your biggest influences? Tell us about your roots.
Man, I started young, definitely, and played on and off, and I was probably in elementary school band, first getting behind the trap set and, playing Christmas concerts and stuff like that. and just always, identified with the drums, and was like, yeah, this is, something I do. And, like all your friends know you for doing that too. And,
Right.
and, I played sports. I did other things. I wasn't as successful at those things. So playing the drums was always consolation to be like, well, I can come back and do this, which, I didn't take it seriously probably until my 20s, when I started, getting offers for gigs and realizing, wow, I need to fill in some holes here and get better. So I sought teachers, and I had I was going to Loyola College at the time. So they had a small music department, and I studied with this Puerto Rican marimbist, Orlando Cotto, I remember, for a while, and just got turned on to a lot of the Latin stuff, and just kind of started expanding from there. Then I met Winston Grennan in Baltimore when I was there, and he is again one of the foundation drummers of Jamaica, who played The Harder They Come. He played Mother and Child Reunion with Paul Simon.
Yeah.
He played on Stone's Goathead Soup. He played like there. So I got to spend a lot of time with this man in his house, and he kind of went through ska, went through rock steady, went through the evolution, because that's really the evolution of Jamaican music. Actually, back into Mento before ska and the things that created ska, but in terms of ensemble music, ska was the first, like drums, bass, keys, guitar, horns, as opposed to chanting with drums and guitar, or music and things like that. So I don't know where am I now? Oh, Winston Grennan.
Yeah.
And so he had a huge impact on me, and I have to thank actually Joe Cooper is this guy, a keyboardist, another Jamaican keyboardist, session musician who moved to West Baltimore, and I was in his band, and he was like, you need to study with this guy, you know what I mean? And he really made that happen, and I ended up, really apprenticing him for a couple of years before I, finally like finished my degree and headed out to Chicago. And I was in corporate America out there, but I made sure I lived walking distance from the Wild Hare, which was a reggae club on what was this street? Clark Street. Yeah. Kitty corner from Wrigley Field. Yeah. So it was a reggae bar, and they had reggae 7 nights a week.
Oh wow.
I was like, this is the place to do. So I'm just coming from Baltimore now. Now I'm in Chicago, and so I go there, and in 2 weeks I'm in a band, and playing every Tuesday night, and that eventually carried. Actually, the owners of that club were from Ziggy Marley's band, and they were mostly Ethiopian. Oh. So I got very much into the Ethiopian culture, and ended up going to Ethiopia for a period of time. And if you notice the end of that drum solo, I go into the 6/8 rhythm.
Yeah. That's Ethiopian.
That's the chick-chicka, exactly.
Oh,
so
wow!
I'm just kind of connecting, the cultures, together, and just my life experience, just playing what you know or who you are, right?
Yeah. And again, the connection of great music to great food. Ethiopian food is just good. Yeah, my son Steve and I were in San Francisco recently on a project, and literally a block away from our hotel was an Ethiopian restaurant we ate at, and then there's one in San Diego that's just fantastic. My wife and I ate at one in Albuquerque, of all places. You never know where they got popped up. And I've never had Ethiopian food where it's kind of like, it was all right. It's always amazing. Yeah. And when you connect those dots with music and food and music and food, there's a relationship there.
Well, it's crazy that I kind of went to Ethiopia before I even went to Jamaica.
Yeah.
It's almost, but that is really, a very, very big part of the story, because there are two Ethiopian musicians, Henok and Abagas, a bass player and a keyboard player, who went to Berkeley. And I was asking them, well, what was that like? And, they were amazing players. And I was just like, wow, and, they are now like a production team, and they record all the Ethiopian artists, and they kind of have their own label. And I was like, wow, this is really what, I would want to do. And I went back and gave my 2 weeks notice, and I applied to Berkeley, and that's it. I moved to Boston. That was the next evolution of my music education,
Awesome. And talking about educations, is that also where you met your wife?
It is where
there you go. You're still being schooled then.
Exactly.
She's a professor at Berkeley, folks. I found out before we went live. That's great.
Yeah. It's been a lot. It's been a great road. It's been challenging. In terms of like making music work, right? Like, I have to teach, I engineer, I do whatever I can do. I remember when my kids were first born, and I couldn't really take a lot of gigs. I could take these like kids, I call them kids gigs, but they were, children's music gigs that you played in like auditoriums and middle schools at noon. I could get away with doing that. Now when I went to Berkeley, I focused on production, really. I didn't go for a performance degree, because I was really kind of playing already. And as soon as I got to Boston, I got in a band as well. So, I knew how to do that part of it. I just wanted to get the skills, the production chops. And I got a degree in music synthesis, which was at the time the digital version of music production, So So I've been doing Pro Tools for like, I don't know, since it came out, like 25 years or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
So none of, all that stuff is very, very, I guess second nature almost, since I've seen so many, all the permutations, evolutions of it, to the point where I'm just like, well, Pro Tools isn't even good enough anymore, because there's much better stuff now that people make. So we're done with that. But just going through, that whole process of being an engineer, and then also being a drummer, and in Jamaica doing both a lot of time.
Nice.
And kind of being able, even here, I still am doing that. That's just kind of how I've kind of paired the two. And then now I run a independent record label, Naya Records.
Yeah, Naya Records. And after 10 years of a bit of a hiatus, you're back, and you guys have a new album, right?
Yeah. Kind of a re-release. It's actually an album that I put out in 2014, but didn't do it properly, because this album really was, my first kind of full on production, where I was, involved in every part of it, and went to Jamaica and recorded the singers and came back, and, I actually ended up remixing rhythms underneath it first, and then putting that out now, just because the original team who I was recording for didn't want to put out the music. So I was like, I'll just take I'll take the vocals then and rewrite the music. And
there you go.
So I am definitely somebody that will, keep at something when I believe in it, and just the struggle to get those vocals was enough to motivate me to do the rest of the work, and it came very easily, and it was very natural, and it just made me realize that that's what I should be doing all along. So
that's cool.
There's definitely experience is the best teacher, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of experience, you and Nate Edgar just got back from Iceland recently. Was that for the new album or a different project?
This is a different project. This is with King's Highway. King's Highway is kind of another band that we started back in Boston probably 25 years ago. We were playing in the Harvard Pit, and we would get car batteries and inverters and run amps and go out. And we played all the music from there's this kind of Nyabingi album called Cedric Brooks and the Mystical Light of Saba, and we would just play arrangements from this album and I think another Count Alcy album, which again was this kind of instrumental horn driven with hand drums and upright bass. And but now, when we went to Iceland, it was electric bass. But I'm just saying at the time.
Sounds so cool, though.
Yeah, we would play in the pit. We kind of, got a sound, and it's a group of friends. And we now have worked with the Alpha Institute in Jamaica, the formerly Alpha Boys School.
Yeah.
And we've done some fundraisers. We've done some educational exchange where I've gone down with 2 other band members and done some teaching there and some performances, and then come back and brought 2 students and a teacher, their head teacher, to Boston, New England area, and brought them to Berkeley and Canton High School and University of Rhode Island. Wow. And also we did 2 performances with them included while they're here to give them kind of an out of Jamaica experience. Yeah. Right.
How old were the kids?
They were the just graduating. So I believe they were 18, around 18, 19, right?
Mm-hmm. Great.
Something there. So an experience that would be impactful on them, and hopefully, continue to inspire their peers, right? To be like, hey,
I imagine the stories they came
together, so we could get out on the road and hit America,
right?
New York, and go to
talk about motivating.
Yeah, so they're
that's great.
So it's great to be involved with Alpha, and so now this album, it's being recorded and produced. We have some artists, Jamaican artists, and I'm not even gonna go down into the names or anyone, but notable artists that we're going to be featuring, and we're really excited about it, and
that's great.
We're going to be mixing it in Jamaica, so nice. We're bringing it full circle. We're going to mix it Tough Gone with another great friend, mentor, Stephen Stewart, nice. Great engineer, Jamaican engineer, and it will come out on Naya Records.
When do you have a timeline for this?
If everything goes well, I'm hoping we'll at least start probably releasing some singles by midsummer.
Great. Time for a tour, possibly summer. Fall?
Probably the following spring or maybe the fall. We might do some some different New York or Miami or
great.
Even Kingston. Cool. Some things could be happening. But right now I'm just kind of I'm doing actually both a little the engineering side of it and the drumming and producing. So it definitely again it's very fulfilling that way that I can kind of play these roles and also just kind of just enjoy the process,
very cool. Let's look at there's a couple other comments here. Oh yeah, that's right. Joshua's reminding me that Larence is the one that has instructional DVD out on reggae music. That's right. And Stuart Copeland plays music from the East that sounds like reggae. That's correct. And his reference to the 80s was that it was part of the 80s music movement that brought reggae to the forefront. There was a lot of ska that started to come out in the U.S. around that time.
Oh yeah,
well.
Absolutely.
Probably most notable pop-wise might be No Doubt. Probably.
And
there are a few others since, of course.
Funny enough, I did some touring with the Toasters.
Oh, really?
Who are I would say, one of the first ska bands, as far as two-tone ska in America, right? Bucket, the whole thing out of New York. So, I was with them. I did all of North America with them.
And I heard that when they tour, the hotels wouldn't let them go in the pool.
Why was that?
They're Toasters. The grandpa jokes are coming out.
I was like, whoa.
So here's a question about the Iceland experience. Why? You've been there. So I'm hoping you can answer this age-old question. Why is Iceland green on the map, but Greenland is white like ice? What's up with that, man?
I think maybe there's more volcanoes on Iceland.
Maybe that's why, and it's fertile, so it's green.
It's more geothermal.
Yeah.
I mean, literally when we're there, like I don't like cold places, so I was a little scared, right? You could be anxious about it if you're a person that's like, yeah, you know, when it's really cold, it's uncomfortable. Like, and,
yeah.
So I was bringing lots of clothes and, you know, boots and the gloves and cigar. And I went there and I was so shocked about how, I guess it was temperate at the time we went, but but actually I think there is this like it's like kind of radiant heating.
Oh, that makes sense.
From the land
yeah.
itself. So there's always this like strange mist around or fog because it's somehow warmer where you're standing than the air that you're breathing.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had a friend here just left on Sunday who was here for a few days from Kenya, and she was freezing here. And it was cold. It was like during the day between 44 and 50, and she's from Kenya. She was freezing the whole time.
Yeah.
And we've got a fire pit outside, so we built that. And we're standing like this far from it, you know. And she was just like down jacket, and just it's cold here because what she's used to, you know.
Are you near Flagstaff?
No, we are. That's north of Phoenix, whereas we're exactly east. So Tucson is 2 hours directly south of us, and Phoenix is west of us, an hour and a half.
I see. You're closer to Boston.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah, we're not that far from New Mexico. We're like maybe an hour or so from the border. Actually, we're in very east Arizona, so up in the mountains. Yeah, it's neat. We like it. I can't wait for this music to come out, and I'd love to learn more over time from you about the work that you're doing in Jamaica with the nonprofit and, you know, how all that works. And if there's anything we can do to help promote those projects, you know, please, by all means, just reach out and let's talk about that.
Totally. Well, yeah, maybe I'll have to come back for an update.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. Last question would be for everyone to really get to know you. What do you like to do when you're not doing anything having to do with music? Do you have any hobbies? Do you collect anything? How do you like to? I know you got family, and other than that, we know that's important. But what else are you interested in?
I was going to say you're a father of 11, so you know, like, what do you want to do when you're not doing anything? Well,
it's nap.
Right. Sleep is definitely. I do enjoy napping.
Good sleep.
Yeah, on a good Sunday afternoon or something like that, where it's just kind of like, yeah, you know. But I do actually like to nap around my kids and, you know, to hear them, you know, or maybe that's just a product because they are still young, right? So I still have that. It's almost like a instinct. Like, I don't want to go upstairs and take a nap. I need to take a nap like around them somehow in case something happens. Like, but they're all obviously nothing's gonna happen, right?
Right. But it is instinctive. It's paternal.
I haven't broken through that barrier of being like, all right, you know, like has to be calculated and half napping almost, like the one eye open.
Yeah. Tight. Give it a little time. You'll be hiding in the closet for a nap.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, and I know they're going to go to college and all that stuff. And it's just going to be like, ooh, what do you do? You know, I can only imagine because you've just been so into this one thing. And I guess it is, you know, this trip to Iceland was part of that. Like I am able to do things now that 5 years ago I had to be like, you know, I have to not do that.
Kids
were
so little, right?
Yeah, you know, I had to just, you know, keep it local and just kind of stay where I was and not make big movements really and just stay by the family. So I feel really like you know, people like want to say, "Oh, you're gonna have kids. That's the end of it for you," and you know, nothing's gonna. And it's like, no, it's not true.
No, it's not
you know?
like that at all.
And actually, it makes you. If it's for you, it makes you a better person. You know.
Yeah, exactly. We're not all wired the same, and for some people, it's not right. Others, it's what makes it work. You know.
Exactly. It's that one little piece that you actually focus on, and I do now. My work is very much family motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Where I guess before it was more self-motivated,
Yeah.
in terms of like, oh, I want to, you know, be here or play this or do that. I'm like, I want to, you know, be able to have a career so I can give my family a life, you know, and give my wife a break from teaching and give, you know what I mean, and do the things, and you know, and not make it a struggle, you know, and where the arts can be that way and are designed to be that way in this country, especially, you know, there's no easy way out, you know, like in Europe, I know, you know, there's a lot of government, like in France, if you play X amount of gig, like, you know, it's a lot of gigs, something like 200 gigs a year, they pay you like half of that. So it's like, you don't have to do anything else. You can just do, so you know what I mean? They cover the other part of it, so you can just concentrate on your thing, because obviously you're that good of a performer that you can sustain yourself, right? So it's almost merit-based as well, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a different mindset culturally, because the arts have been supported there for longer than like the United States and Canada have been around. It's just a whole different, you know, outlook on it all. Whereas here, it's like, go get a real job. Right. It's like, what?
I always say that, yeah, like in terms of that, like, you know, Europe, you know, they're like the grandfathers, but America's like an adolescent still.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Australia too, probably, right? Or maybe a little older than America, like you know,
maybe, but
not a full China. Or
you don't get the few century-old castles and all this history that's just, it's not here. Well, we'll have to have you back on again. Yeah. Definitely. Keep us up to date. Stay on the line as we say goodbye to the audience. And I want to give a shout out to Joe Waller. Happy holidays. Happy holidays, everybody, as we're recording this, broadcasting live and archiving it. What is it, the 20th? I had to peek. It's 12/20/2022. We're about to turn a digit on there. Drum Talk TV turns 10 years old. January. I can't believe it. Stay tuned for news on that. I want to thank Mercedes so much for connecting us. Nathan Sabanayagam, thank you for joining us. Awesome work with Naya Records, Naya Rockers. Give a shout to Nate and everybody else. Just beautiful music. I can't wait till all of that comes out. And folks, we will see you soon. I just found out that Phil Ehart from Kansas is joining us at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on the 22nd. So watch for that. Phil Ehart celebrating 50 years of Kansas music. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.